Are you in the process of applying for citizenship, or you already have your naturalization interview scheduled and you are scared? You do not know what to expect in the interview. Well, in this video, I am going to demystify that whole citizenship interview for you. What steps the officer will take, what you need to know before you get to the interview. We're going to talk about it because the one thing that I know for sure that's going to make you feel better is if you know what to expect when you walk through those doors. I am Lillian Chukwurah. I'm a US-based immigration attorney, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the US immigration law system. First thing you need to know is when you have your citizenship interview, you're going to get a notice in the mail. You need to make sure you read the notice. You are not late for your interview. You want to show up at least 15 minutes before your interview. When you walk through the building, you're going to go through security, right? You're going to walk through a metal detector, put your bag or whatever you have through a metal detector, and then you're going to go up to the front desk person, right? They're going to take your notice, scan it, make sure you actually have an interview that day, and put it in the system so that the officer knows that you have arrived. Then they're going to direct you to sit and wait for your name to be called. When the officer calls you in, they're going to call you by your name. You're going to walk up to the officer. They're going to take you into their office. First thing the officer is going to do is swear you in. Okay, you're going to be under oath the whole time. So you're going to take an oath to tell the truth the entirety of your interview. And raise your right hand, you take the oath, then you sit down. Next up, the officer is going to want to see your passport, your green card, your ID, whatever you have to show who you are. The officer wants to see it. So they'll compare it to what they have in their system, make sure everything is up to date, and then the officer can get into the naturalization test. All right. And this test is what scares most of you out there, and I know it. There's 3 parts to the test. There's the reading, the writing, and the civics. Some officers handle this test differently. Some of them may start with the civics and then do the reading and writing, and others will start with the reading and writing and then get into the civics. So we just had an interview this past week, and I'm going to use that interview to basically as an example of what that can look like. In the interview we had, the officer started with the reading and writing. So the reading portion is there's an iPad there, right? When you go into your interview, you see on the officer's desk, there's going to be an iPad. And for the reading, the words will show up on the screen on the iPad. You have to read that to the officer. And then for the writing, the officer will give you a sentence, right? Will tell you something, and you have to write it on the iPad. And then the officer will evaluate it and accept it. If they don't accept it, they may give you a different sentence for you to write, right? So you do get like 1 or 2 tries when it comes to those tests. But just know there's going to be an iPad. You're going to read it from the iPad and you're going to write it on the iPad. So don't be scared, okay? So for the test that we had recently, the words on the screen were that the client had to read were, how many senators do we have? So that's the words that showed up on the iPad, and the client had to read that. And then for the writing, the officer said, we have 100 senators. And the client had to write that out. The officer evaluated it, accepted it, and moved on to the next part, which is the civics. Again, the civics, there's 100 questions that the officer can potentially pull from. But in your interview, they can ask you up to 10 questions. You just have to get 6 correct. Super important, super scary, but you only have to get 6 out of 10 correct. For the civics test, you only have 100 questions to study from, so you need to figure out the best way that you study. Some people like reading things, so make sure you have the test written form ready for you to read. There's also audio versions, there's video versions, there's so many different ways that you can consume that 100 questions to prepare for the civics, that I want you to figure out the one that works best for you and use that. There's also an app that USCIS has that you can test yourself. So make sure, again, use all the tools available to you to study. The more you study, the more you know these things, the easier and better you're going to feel going into the civics test, okay? Now, I'm going to tell you the 6 questions that my client got, because we didn't get to 10 because he got the first 6 correct, all right? We didn't get to 10 questions because he got the first 6 correct, and the officer moved on to the next stage. Remember, you only have to get 6 right. So the officer only has to ask you 6 questions, and if you get all 6 correct, they're not going to ask you the rest of the questions, all right? So first question is, who does a U.S. Senator represent? Second question, who is in charge of the executive branch? Third question, before President Eisenhower was a president, he was a general. Which war was he a general in? Fourth question, name one state that borders Canada. Fifth question, what is the name of the Vice President of the United States today? And then sixth question, when do we celebrate Independence Day? My client was able to get all 6 of those correct, and the officer then moved on to the application, right? Reviewing the application, asking additional questions on the application. So let's talk about what that looks like. When you file for naturalization, you're filing an N-400. You need to make sure you review your form before your interview to make sure that everything on the form is still accurate. If there's something on the form that's no longer accurate, let's say you moved or you have an additional child, or before your interview you got married or got divorced, you want to make sure that you are letting the officer know that at your interview. All right. So when they're going through your form, they're going to ask you questions about every single thing on your form, right? They're going to ask you about your name, if you've ever used any other name, your date of birth, your address, where you work, how long you've worked there, things like that. So every single thing on your form. If there's anything on your form that you marked yes to, like on the security questions, on the background questions, for example, if you've been arrested within the past 5 years and you said yes, you need to make sure that you have the court documents that show that you still qualify for citizenship, even though you had that record, okay? Here's a tip for you so that you do not waste your time or money applying for citizenship. If you have a criminal case that is still pending, or you are currently on probation, your probation is not over yet, do not waste your time or your money applying for citizenship, because the officer cannot approve your case because they don't know what the outcome of your criminal case is going to be, or if you are going to finish your probation without incident, okay? So they are not going to be able to approve you. They're not going to be able to confirm that you have good moral character to be able to apply for citizenship. So make sure that before you apply, that you are already done with any probation and that your court case has finished in your favor. So once the officer goes over the forms and makes sure that everything on it is correct and they have all the information they need in order to approve your case or deny your case or need more information, they're going to then have you review and sign the oath of allegiance. Because one of the questions is, are you willing and able to sign the oath of allegiance? And if you say yes, which for you to become a citizen, most of the time you have to say yes, unless you have a legitimate objection. You have to say yes. They're going to have you read it and make sure that you still want to and are willing to take the oath of allegiance. And if you are still willing to, you're going to sign on the iPad again that you're still willing to take the oath of allegiance. If there's any changes, let's say, you had to change your address or something else on the form had to change, or there's more information the officer had to put in the form based on your answers to their questions, they will have you review it again on the iPad and make sure that everything on it is correct. And if it is correct, you will then go ahead and sign. If it's not correct, if there's something that's off, if the officer wrote, a name wrong or describe the situation incorrectly, you let the officer know. They can correct it, bring it back up on the iPad, you confirm that they corrected it, and then you can sign. Okay, do not sign anything until you have reviewed it and confirmed that it is accurate. All right? Because by signing it, you're saying that everything on there is accurate. You can't come back later and say that it's not accurate because you reviewed it and you signed it. All right. So once you have signed that, the officer will then let you know you passed your test, right? And then if they're recommending your application for approval or if they need more information, they will let you know right there. And they will give you a sheet of paper that basically lets you know your results from that day. And then that's it. Your interview is over. The officer will walk you out to the lobby and then you are free to go. If your case is approved, the next thing you're going to receive in the mail from USCIS is a notice for your oath ceremony where you will be sworn in to become a US citizen. That's my favorite part. When I have to follow up with a client and be like, hey, did you receive your notice? Are you ready for your swearing in? Remember, it's on this date, at this time, at this location. One of my favorite things to do. So always want to make sure that if you move right after doing your interview, that you update your address because they're going to send it to the address they have on file for you. So make sure that you are always giving USCIS your most current address for those things. If the officer decides that there's something that they need to look into, they're going to send you a request for evidence or something of that nature to get more information. And then once they get the information from you, they can make a final decision on your case. And that's really the interview process. I know before you get into the room, it's so daunting, but just know this is all that's going to happen that day, right? The test is going to happen. The forms are going to be reviewed. The officer may ask you follow-up questions based on your answers to the things on your forms. You're going to sign that you want to take the oath and sign that everything that you told the officer is correct. And then you're going to leave either knowing that your case is approved or that the officer needs information from you. You're going to know one way or the other before you leave that building. And then you just wait for your oath ceremony and you are done. Once you get to your oath ceremony, you become a US citizen. You are, as an individual, done with the immigration process. That is the end of your immigration journey. Now, if you want to file for family, it starts a new journey, but it's not your own individual journey. It's getting now green cards and citizenships for family. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button. If you have questions, put them in the comments. If you are scared to go to your interview and you want to just have a quick chat with me to figure out, if there's things in your case that you need to be prepared for at your interview, if you want to do a mock interview, you can go ahead and reach out to me. All my links are in the description to this video, and we can see how we can help you feel more confident as you go through your naturalization journey and your interview.